Welcome to the Business of Black Business, a talk show that interviews Black entrepreneurs and advocates for Black business. The topics of conversation include access to capital, best business practices, success stories, and more. Now introducing our host, Mr. Jay Reynolds.
Hi, my name is Jay Reynolds, and welcome to the Business of Black Business. Now, are you an entrepreneur that's looking to level up your business? Would you like to increase your online presence today? And today we're going to get the opportunity to talk to a person who's done both those two things. Introduced business, helped entrepreneurs to level up their business, and to also increase their marketing presence. My name is Jay Reynolds. I own and operate Wolf Creek Consulting. We are a top-ranked executive staffing firm located in South Florida, Birmingham, Alabama, and West Palm Beach. We primarily place professionals in finance, accounting, IT, and engineering. The Business of Black Business. Now, this is a show designed to help Black entrepreneurs and would-be Black entrepreneurs build, grow, and stage and level up their business. It's a unique opportunity to gain access to people that have done it, to hear directly from successful business owners and professionals that will allow you to basically tap into their psyche and understand how they did it, and just to learn from them, to hear how they did it, and also to get advice. Before we get started, it's always one of the things that we have to do is thank the people that allow this to happen. We want to thank our sponsors, DeMesman and Dover Personal Injury Attorneys. Victor DeMesman and your team, thank you very much for all you do. The Florida Lottery, Career Source South Florida, AARP, the University of Miami Research for All. Now, again, I'm very excited to have our today's guest, Mary David, a person who's David's definitely a person that is an influencer out there, and almost a household name. She is the owner of D&M Consulting Services, a career and branding strategy development firm created to help entrepreneurs and business professionals excel. Her clients are leadership professionals, philanthropists, public speakers, relationship experts, financial strategists, and other corporate professionals. Mary holds a bachelor's degree in business management, a master's degree in human resources management from Nova University, and a certificate of women's entrepreneurship from Cornell University, the home of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Mary is a member of the Broward County alumni chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. She is the recipient of Legacy Magazine, most influential and prominent Black women in business and industry. And I am really, really excited to have Mary here today. Mary, thank you very much for being here. I know you have a lot of things going on. You wear a lot of hats. So thank you for spending the time to be here. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
What I want to do to get started, what you do for me is to introduce yourself. Tell us about tell us about yourself. Tell us about who you are, your influences, and why you are the person you are today.
I am a career and leadership development strategist. So I help people create a roadmap for success for their careers. And that includes working one-on-one with primarily women, primarily Black women in corporate America who are looking to advance within their careers. They have some experience and they're looking to grow, to level up, to break the glass ceiling, to get higher pay, but also maneuver the politics within corporate America. So I work with those women one-on-one. I also work with organizations who need help getting their employees more engaged and motivated in the workplace, because you can show up at work, but really not love what you do or understand how your work connects to the overall organizational goals and missions and values. So I come in and I help create that clarity and understanding for leadership so that they can have the right effective communication strategies to make sure their employees are more engaged and motivated about the work that they do. I got into this type of work because—
That's fairly complex. Before you do that, tell me, who are your influences in your life? Tell me where you come from. Tell me where you grew up.
Well, I was born in San Diego, California.
Mhm.
My mother was a foster mom, a single parent foster mom. We had about 10 to 12 kids in our house at any given moment.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
yeah, so my mom she was also a pastor. She had owned her own church. She was a traveling evangelist. So I grew up, with a Pentecostal background,
Pentecost.
Kojic, I grew
Oh
up.
yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I grew up, my
That's a
mom was
very
very
cool
strict.
dynamic environment.
She was very strict. And, she was a single woman, and she, basically carried the community on her back. And what I remember growing up was that every time there would be a ask for more children to come into the home, she would never turn them away. Instead, she would add on to our home. She would
Wow.
build rooms. She would have beds put in. And that taught me that, expansion, right? It taught me that there are no limits, that you don't
Right.
have to say no. You just need to figure out a way to make things work. So I learned that from her. And then we moved to Florida when I was younger. And I pretty much grew up in South Florida. I went to high school here.
Hmm.
And, I had some challenges, growing up. My mother, unfortunately passed away when I was a senior in high school. So then I became an orphan, and I graduated as an orphan. And I had to figure out my way. We didn't have
Right.
a lot of money. So I figured out my way, not met with, not, we didn't have a trust fund. We didn't have any
Right.
money.
Right.
I
Right.
was the
Right. Right.
youngest
Right.
of the
That
children.
makes a way.
I was alone. I was by myself. So I figured it out. Long story short, I ended up going to college. I worked all the way through from high school on. I've never stopped working. Never,
Right.
thank God.
Right.
I've never been without income, which is great.
Right.
But I learned a lot of hard lessons along the way.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But the reason why that's important to have to tell those stories on these panels or on this podcast is purely because of the fact that somebody is living a life identical to yours or very close to yours, and it gives them the proof source, if you would, that they can do it too. They
Yeah.
just have to persevere.
Yeah.
You graduated from high school on your own, you went to college on your own, and you found a way to make that happen, and you've built a successful business. Traveled through corporate America and built a very successful business doing that. Talk to me a little bit about your corporate life, and then we'll talk about. I want to drill down into what you do today.
Okay. So my very first 9 to 5 job happened. I actually, and this is what's important. I don't want to leave this out. We were talking about this before our podcast started. The importance of relationships. So I used to work at the mall when I was in high school. Worked at the mall. I had a manager that I was working at 579. I don't know if you guys know about this store, but I was working there. But anyway, so the manager at the store, I developed a relationship with her, and we became friends. So she ended up leaving, and I went to work somewhere else. And she called me, and she called me because we had maintained our relationship. She was older than me, but I've always had relationships with people who were more, or
Right,
older,
right. You're a bit
I could learn from. I always
mature,
try to,
pretty
yeah. So
precocious, right?
I want people to learn. I want to learn from people. I want to learn from their experiences. So it's just natural. I gravitate towards people I can learn from. So anyway, she called me and she said, I am working for this person, this title company, and they're looking for someone. So would you be interested? Now, I didn't have a car. I was broke. Okay. I didn't have a car. I was on the bus, the BCT. I was on the bus. I'm like, how am I going to get to a 9 to 5? Like committed to a certain amount of hours every day. I don't have anywhere to get there. So I figured it out, and it was $10 an hour. And that was what I was starting at, $10 an hour. And I was just supposed to come in, learn what was happening. Now, mind you, I'm like 19 years old. I don't know anything about real estate. I know nothing.
Right.
Okay. So I learned all these things, and I was just a sponge where I was, and I made it work. And 2 years in, guess what? Jay, I was still making $10 an hour.
Yeah.
2 years.
I got you.
Okay.
I know where that's going. Yeah.
2 years in, I
Give
pretty
me a
much
cost of living
inside
increase
and
or
out. I can
something.
open it, I can close it, I can do it all. Okay. I'm 2
Yeah.
years in, right? Because I'm a sponge.
Right.
And I realized, like, man, I have it was just then I started to think about my life and the things I wanted to accomplish. Because before then, I was just had my head down in survival mode. I was
Right.
trying to
Right.
survive. So I
Right.
wasn't
Right.
thinking about like the future. I was like, right
Right.
now, I'm gonna eat right now.
Right. Right.
And the lesson that this first corporate job taught me was nothing's going to be handed to you in this world, in this corporate world. You have to ask for it. Like, he was not, to him, it was a business decision not to pay me, not to increase my pay, right? Unethical, you can call it whatever, but he was Italian, half Jewish. He was about his money. Like, what am I going to do?
Right. Right.
So I ended up asking him for a raise, but I didn't do that without already shopping my role. And I don't know how I thought about it, but it just came to me, like, go and look and see how much people are getting paid for the work you're doing. Now, again, I knew nothing about the real estate industry before I got this job. So I don't have any connections, really. I'm just out there. And I found out that people were getting paid a lot more money for the things I was doing.
Right. Right.
And so I went to him with that information. I didn't tell him what I knew, but I went to him and asked him for a raise. And I talked about my contributions. I talked about the things I add to the organization. I talked about, all of the successes because I was there. Right. And this man told me no. He told me he was not going to give me a raise. I'm making $10 an hour.
Yeah.
He told me to come back in 6 months. I'm not giving you 6 more months. At this point, I had already interviewed and had 3 offers on the table.
Gotcha.
Little did he know. And I gave him my resignation. And that was the scariest thing I've ever had to do. And
so did you give him your resignation?
Right then and there. Right then and there.
Right then and there. Okay. Got it.
When I went in there and asked him for a raise and he told me no, and he told me to come back in 6 months, I had already had my 3 offers on the table in my back pocket, which I didn't tell him about.
Of course not.
But in my other back pocket, I gave him my letter of resignation.
Right.
Because at that point, I knew there was a decision to be made.
Oh, absolutely.
I had to choose me, or he had to see my value. Something had to happen.
Now, I have to ask you this before we move on. I have to ask you this. Did he make you a counter offer sitting there at that time? He let you walk. He let all of that.
No, it was a very hard road because I will tell you, we had the type of working relationship, very professional relationship, but we had the type of relationship where I think because he was an older white male, I think, he took on a role of mentorship, with me. So there was a sense of loyalty.
He felt like you weren't being loyal.
I felt like I wasn't being loyal because I had my own convictions about that, because here was a person who hired me. I didn't know anything about the industry. He gave me a chance. Right. And I think that's a lot where we get caught up in, because our people, we think we're more emotional. We think with our hearts. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just keeping it real.
The sense of loyalty. There's a sense of loyalty.
We operate on this sense of loyalty sometimes. And I think that doesn't serve us well, because for all the loyalty expectations he had of me and I had of myself, right, that wasn't going to get me where I needed to get. Like, I wasn't going to advance me. And I had to understand that I was willing to sacrifice his idea of what I should be loyal for my legacy, for my future. I had to give that guilt up. And it was a very scary thing for me to do, I will tell you. And it took a level of courage, because I'm by myself, right? I'm trying to maneuver this world by myself. And this is the first real job I've ever had with consistent paychecks coming in. And I was comfortable. I had learned a lot. I was comfortable. I felt confident, right? So it's scary going somewhere new and not having that confidence. But I had to choose me. And that was a turning point in my life. When he told me no and I still left, it was a hard road. Them 2 weeks was very hard. Yeah. And I still gave him 2 weeks. I mean, and I felt he made me feel like I was walking out on the family type of thing. Like I was black sheep. Like
Yeah,
he made
yeah,
me
yeah,
feel
yeah.
badly. And but I still left. And guess what? 3 years later, he called me to work for him again.
Oh yeah,
And when I
because
gave him my
you walked
salary,
out with a whole lot of learning, a whole
he
lot of
didn't bat an
information.
eye when I gave him my salary number.
Yeah,
Did not bat an eye.
yeah,
Because now we've learned each other at this point.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
That's actually a really, really powerful story, Marian. One that somebody is sitting on the edge of their seat right now watching this because they're underpaid, undervalued, and have to make a decision. And
Yes.
you had the courage. You had the courage to kind of step out on that faith, understanding that, hey, look, I know what I'm worth, and I'm going to find it. And all too often, we sell ourselves short, just
Yes.
exactly like what you just said.
Yes.
And I think it's a very cool story that somebody 20 years old had the courage, 20, 21 years old had the courage to do what you did. That's a very powerful story. Now, let's talk about what you do. You are a fairly sought after consultant, right? And a lot of what you do is in social media and LinkedIn. How did you get involved in that? LinkedIn is I've had a LinkedIn profile for 20 years. Not everybody has, right?
Yeah.
But it's really because of the business that I'm in. I'm an executive recruiter, which means that I need to know people and people need to know me.
Yeah.
So when LinkedIn came out, I said, "Hell, this is a great concept, right?" That means that I could be in touch with a president of a company that
That's right.
in Washington D.C. Are you kidding me or whatever? So I jumped on LinkedIn very early. But tell me what got you interested in this particular industry?
I love the idea. Well, I love the concept that social media can extend your reach, right? Like you
Sure.
just said. So I love that. But it also takes that strategic part. You have to have a strategy in order to make those connections because it's no different than building relationships with someone you just met at a networking event. Like there's no different. You have to continue to, caress that relationship
Yeah.
to build trust.
Yeah.
And how I got into it was I'm a writer. I love writing. I've always loved writing. My very first thing I asked my mom and my grandma for was a computer. Like I love, or a typewriter,
Yeah.
whatever it was back then. I love writing, and my love of writing went over to LinkedIn and to social media because I started on LinkedIn. I'm very much business mindset. I've always had that structure in my head of processes and how things should go. And I've always been opinionated too. So all of those things work
That
together.
helps.
You can't tell.
Yeah. Right,
um,
right.
all those things work together. So when LinkedIn came around, I was like, this is a professional platform. I have to be on it, right? And when they opened up the ability for you to post your thoughts and blog really on their platform, I was already blogging about career and leadership development work because that's what my business was already offering. So I took it to LinkedIn and I used their platform to extend my reach and get my content out there and get my ideas and thoughts and share the value that I've been sharing to my clients off of their platform. So that's really how I got into LinkedIn. And then I learned, that through giving that value, first, that was my first priority, is to share my value.
Okay.
And then that would attract the right people to me and we would continue those conversations offline. That's how I got into LinkedIn and started using it to build my clientele and relationships that I have now.
How did you perfect it? Because there's certainly an art. There's not just posting your picture out there and putting your job history and the fact that you like fluffy dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. But tell me, how did
Yeah.
you perfect that? How did you get it to a point in time when it became a business for you?
Well, in anything you want to do, you want to start from a place of, and I can't stress this enough, how can I add value to the people that I genuinely want to reach? You can't start from a place of, I want people to come to my website. I want them to come and see what I'm doing to buy from me. You can't. And this is why I'm in the field that I'm in, right? Because I'm always career development mindset in what you truly love to do is organic, and you will do it whether you're getting paid or not. Of course, you should get paid. I'm all about the coin, but I am also about people know when you're not being genuine. People know when you don't believe in what you're selling. Like, they know it. And don't be naive to that fact. You know, people can tell, they can read it. They can read it off of a screen, or they can see it when we're having these conversations.
Yeah.
So I always go into every relationship building process the same way. You know, how can I give the gift that I've been given and the knowledge that I've been given to this audience so that they can benefit? Because chances are, you know, 90% of what I'm giving out, and if someone benefits from it, I'll never know. I'll never know, you know, that they were able to benefit from it. But that 10% will come back to me and tell me, or have that relationship with me. And that's what matters to me, because if I just reach one person, and this sounds very like, oh yeah, right, Mary, but it really, I believe this. If I can reach one person, I've changed a life that's changed a life, right? I've changed and impacted that person because they connected with me on this platform, and they were able to get value from me that they can take back and apply to their situation. And that's worth everything for me, because the money will come.
Right. You got to have a servant's heart.
Desire that I have.
Even in your own business, everybody in their business have somewhat of a servant's heart, or every entrepreneur has got to have this idea, a feeling that they want to give something back, you know? Doggone, my thing just went down. Hang on. Talk to me a little bit about, everybody doesn't use LinkedIn, right? So there are people out there that don't even understand it, don't use it. Tell me why it's important for people, even college kids or whatever, to have to set up and manage a LinkedIn profile.
Well, I'm a big believer in, if you don't create the narrative for your brand, someone else will.
That's an interesting way to put that. Yeah.
If you don't control that narrative, what's going to happen? People are going to Google you, right? They're going to Google you, and they're like, okay, Amy Smith, you know, let me Google her. And the only thing that's going to come up is going to be, you was at the club, or you were here, you know, whatever. You have to control the narrative, because it's your brand, your reputation, right? One of the things I love about LinkedIn is that the connection it has with Google. So even if you don't have a website, even if you don't have, you know, some special page for your professional, you know, brand, whatever package, then LinkedIn will pull up first. If your name is, you know, your name, and you don't have all these different things behind it, it will pull up, and that will be the first thing people say. So you basically can tell people, look, this is the value I offer. This is how long I've been doing it. Here's my area of expertise. So the very minimum, you have to control that narrative so that there's consistency. So when you're even right out of college, even if you're in college now, and you're going after these internships or opportunities, they're Googling you, right? That's what we do, right? We're going to search up to see what you have going on, right? So you want that first hit, that first piece of information that they see about you online, to be consistent with what you said to them in person. So at the very least, you're doing it for your own level of confidence that your message is consistent and you control the brand. That's just bare minimum. Have something up there that says exactly what you said when you met them. You can't have, you know, you can't go and say, okay, you know, I'm starting a barbershop company, right? And then they're like, okay, good, I'm going to look you up. They look you up, and you have anime all over your thing or whatever. You're doing something totally different than what they said. So that, who buys from people that they don't trust, that are inconsistent? No one, right?
I got to tell you, I mean, in my business, as in the staffing world, I get hundreds of resumes a day, right? And as I'm looking through resumes or talking to people about positions, or somebody in my office gives me a resume, the very first thing, to the point that you make, I really can't add much to what you just said, but the first thing that I do is I look them up on LinkedIn. That's the first thing I do, and I compare the resume to what they say on LinkedIn. And if there's an inconsistency to the point that you make between the resume and what's on LinkedIn, red flag, right?
Red flag.
And then I begin to do the other due diligence of looking at other things that will pop up on this person's name on social media. Now, that's before I even call the person, right?
Right.
Before I even call them. So by the time I'm actually on the phone with that person, if those things, to the point that you're making, are not syncing up, and if it
Right.
doesn't make sense and it doesn't inspire a certain amount of trust for me, I don't even call them. The unfortunate thing is that I will tell you, for every 10 people resumes that I get, 7 of them perhaps have LinkedIn profiles. The other 3 don't, for whatever reason, or the LinkedIn profile is just a name and nothing else. That is a
I think it's because people don't understand that the importance of controlling the narrative about their brand.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn's an extension of that. So they don't get that process that you just talked about. That's what happens before they get a phone call for an interview. They don't get that part because they could be knocking themselves out before they even begin. And it's
Absolutely.
not just when people hire me to do their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles. When they hire me to do their resumes and they don't do the LinkedIn profiles, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I recommend that you do this LinkedIn profile, because as soon as you submit this resume, what's going to happen? What you just talked about, Jay, you're going to go and you're going to look them up on LinkedIn to see if there's consistency there. And if there's not, it's a red flag and they will miss an opportunity. So I don't think people realize what they're missing by not having the LinkedIn profile just to stay there. They think that if I start this profile, I have to now maintain it like I do other social platforms. And you should maintain it to an extent.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it should say current information of what your resume says, and reach the audience that you're after. Now, I will say with LinkedIn, it's not just an online resume. It is a resource for you to tell your story, but I don't give it that comparison in that way, because it's still a social platform. You have to build relationships there. So when someone comes to your profile, your resume may say, dedicated professional in the education field, blah, blah. Your LinkedIn may say, I love the educational field because of these things, and here's who I've worked. Like, you're talking more directly to the person reading it, versus your resume may not have that type of narrative.
Right. I got it. That's amazing. That's amazing advice. Thanks very much, Mary. I want to ask you this. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about how you help professionals that are sometimes stymied. What do you see as some of the main reasons that are holding individuals, professionals or whatever, that you find that from living up to their fullest potential?
A lot of my clients and people I've spoken with at conferences and events, one of the most consistent things is the confidence that they lack. And it's never because they can't do the work.
Excuse me.
It's never because they can't do the work. And I have to remind them of that. You have the skill, obviously. And whatever skill you don't have, you can learn. I mean, if you can understand 1, 2, 3 and repeat it, like, you can learn anything, right? Go to school and perfect your craft. So that's never the issue. The issue is you believing that not only you're the right person to do this work, but you're worthy of the pay for this work.
Right.
And building that confidence is what I work on with my clients. And when we get to a point where we have now documented all of their successes, all the things they discarded because they said, this is just part of my job, all the things they overlooked because they put it in a category of, this is just what I was asked to do as part of my job. But if your name is on it, if the outcome was successful because your hands were on it, then that's something you should use and leverage going forward. And it doesn't matter if it was just part of your job or in excess of your job, documented. And when we go through all these things that you've been great at and you've done, and they see it on paper, it boosts their confidence. They're at a place like, wow, I really did do this, because I never add in anything you haven't done or you're not capable of doing. And first of all, it's not ethical. But second of all, this is because most people don't realize all of the value that they bring to the table, because they have never written it down. They've never looked at it on a piece of paper and looked at it and said, this is really me. Now I feel like now I have an armor that I can now go into an interview and be confident and stand in that price that I asked them to pay for my salary. I can now be confident and negotiate in this way because I have something to back it up. right?
Right.
And I've written down all these things I've done. So not just I showed up to work, but here's how I made work better. Here's how I made processes better. Here's how I was able to
Mhm.
get this outcome for the organization so that they can increase productivity or revenue. They can tie all those things together. And when they tie them together, that equates to compensation.
I got to tell you, you're so dead on, and so we sell ourselves so. It goes back to what we were talking about before. We sell ourselves short, or we don't highlight the things that other people are very comfortable doing.
Right,
It's an
right.
uncomfortable place for us, and it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. I can tell you, one of the things that I have noticed that you get in a room of very success. Let's say, for example, you get in a room of some very successful Black entrepreneurs or Black professionals. Um, One of the things that you hear, after a drink or two, they all believe as though, hey, look, one day somebody's going to, they're golden childs, right? They're running companies and they're
Mhm.
they're they're trailblazers and they're making things happen. But after the second or third drink, people said, one day these people are going to find out that I'm not nearly as good as they think that I am, which I just think is just junk.
Imposter syndrome. People you struggle with it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving it a name for me. I just something I just noticed,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, but they are not. These guys are taking,
Yeah.
kicking butt and taking names and making things happen, and at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
absolute top of their games. But they believe as though one day somebody's going to find out that they're not nearly as good as they are, and we shouldn't be that place. And we just got to find a place, through people like you having these discussions to say, hey, look, it's really okay to be good at what you do. It's
And
really
here's another
okay to
thing.
thump your chest a little bit.
No one has a roadmap. No one knows what they're doing, Jay.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I mean, not really. Like you're presented with the situation. You make a decision based off of your skills and knowledge that you have, what you have before you. You make a decision, and that's the best possible decision for you in that moment. And then you move forward with that decision. That's all we're doing. We're making decisions and moving people all day, all of our lives. So we're making educated decision, but you don't go into it knowing what the outcome is going to be. You don't go into it knowing the
exactly.
answer all the time. And that's what I mean by nobody knows what they're doing. You don't know until you're in it. And then you use that skill set and knowledge and your connections or whatever your resources are to make your final decisions for the outcome that you desire, that you think is best for the situation. That's all we do. That's all we do. So the imposter syndrome is tied to the idea that I don't know it going in. Well, no one knows it going in. Breaking news.
Exactly.
No one knows
Exactly.
it. We're all just figuring it out. And we're using our resources or whatever we have to be able to make the best possible decision in that moment. And that's the skill set that people have, one greater than the other. That's a skill set. How are you utilizing your resources? How are you making these decisions to have the outcomes that you desire? How closely are you to success in that way? That's all that's happening. So don't feel guilty that everybody has that struggle of, I don't know what this is going to look like, because you can't see the end of it. But trust your skills, develop those
Yeah.
skills, continue to groom your knowledge, and continue to invest in yourself, and that puts you in a best possible position to make better decisions. That's really all you have to do.
That's great. Very well said. I mean, is this a series of success and failures, right? Just
Yeah,
hoping that you have more, understanding that you're going to have more successes than failures, but it's a
that's right.
series of those. Let's talk about you specifically in your business. Give me an example of some adversity that you personally faced in your business, how you overcame that.
So in my business, and I'm going to go right back to relationships on this one. I There have been times over the years where I've either, been really deep into it and like go, 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 grind, grind, grind mode, right? And there have been moments and seasons of my life where I'm like, I put a pause on it. I need to take a break. I have other things happening in my personal life that I need to deal with. Like recently I moved from where I grew up about an hour and a half north. And that was a transition where I had to readjust my business, my life, and I had a lot going on. And this is in the midst of a pandemic, right?
Got it. Got it.
So, but here's the thing I want to share with you in that. When you build your business where people find value in what you do and you've built enough relationships, there are seasons where you may not have to, this is not for everybody now, may not have to grind as hard as you used to because you need a break, but those relationships will carry you.
Right.
So I've had seasons where I haven't been the one, pursuing the business as gruesomely as I had before. But even when I've had to lay off because I've had other things happening in my life, I still had business coming in, new business built.
Right, new business.
Yeah, off of the relationships
unsolicited phone calls.
Yeah, right. The cold calling I didn't have to do, but I had those relationships sustained me. And I look at it now and I'm like, what a blessing that is, because I don't know how many people can say that. And of course, it depends on the industry you're in, the products you offer and services. But at the end of the day, you can take a break if you set your business up right, and do and handle the things that you need to handle in other areas of your life, because life happens, right? You may whatever happens and you can't be in your business, but those relationships may sustain you, and letting people know what is happening, and just understanding that when I get back to the place where I know, or in my grind mode, for example, I still have what's necessary to generate that new business. It doesn't go away just because I've had a down season, right? I'm still who I am. My product is still great, or I've reevaluated some things in my business. So in the process, I would say educate yourself, know what your game plan is going back in, or readjusting parts of your business, but trust in the relationships that you have built, and people understanding that things happen, where you have things happen in your life, but it's okay, and you still maintain that relationship, and those things will carry your business if you're doing it the right way and being genuine about the value that you bring and being good at your work.
Right. And being good at your work. And sometimes, that's one of the things. You have to be good at what it is you do, for sure. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. I want to ask you just a couple other things. I know you're a busy lady, so won't keep you for forever. I enjoy talking to you, but I want to ask you just a couple of other questions. First of all, talk to me a little bit about what's next for you and your company. Tell me what it is you're doing. Are you launching something new? Is there something that you would want people to know about?
I have two things in the works that I'm not ready to share yet, other than I have another arm of my business that I will be launching. And I'm also in the midst of finally writing my book. So that's a major project that I am working on. And back to what we talked about before, those seasons where you have to take a step back, readjust, and do some things. You may not be as active in one area of your business because you're trying to grow another one, and having those systems set up so that you can have the ability and flexibility to do that. So I am writing my book, but I also have an arm of my business that will be launching when the book comes out. So those are parallel things that are happening.
Very cool. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to share. Like we talked about before, this is all about the person that's listening to you, right? Why don't you leave them with some points of light, some secret sauce, I like to call it, in terms of just one or two things that you believe that the budding entrepreneur or the person that's in a corporate environment that's looking to make the leap, give them some advice. What are one or two things that you think they should know?
So something that I just thought of, and I said this before, but it just came to me, and maybe because it's a message for someone, is don't get distracted by shiny, bright things, right? And I had to learn this lesson myself. When you're growing something and you're building, right? So you may look at opportunities that come your way and it's like, this may help my business. This may help me, what I'm doing, may help exposure, right? All the exposure talk. I would say to take a step back, reset, and think, does this align with the brand messaging that is necessary for my business to build that trust and loyalty in the marketplace? Every good opportunity may not be your opportunity. And it's hard to do that and make those decisions when you're building, because you're like, give me everything, give me all these connections, right? Give it all to me.
Right.
But I had to learn the lesson that hopping over and doing different things because someone presents you with an opportunity that you think is going to generate revenue for you confuses the audience you're trying to build. And if people are confused, they're not buying, right? They're not buying someone they're confused about.
Right. Too many messages. Too many messages.
Be consistent in the value you bring, what you offer, and who you're trying to help. Be consistent in that. And I have had to get moments where I've had to restructure my thought process about doing like free work and free events and things like that. I have a specific amount that I'm willing to give every year in my business. And then when those slots fill up, nothing else is available. And it's okay because I'm still giving, but I also have boundaries. So create boundaries for yourself and for your business. That's another thing I will say has been helpful for me. Boundaries and being okay with saying no, or this doesn't align with what we're trying to do right now. Don't get distracted by those shiny objects that may seem like they're great opportunities, but they may not be aligned with the true thing that you want to offer. Don't get distracted by that, because I think sometimes we can lean into, how much money this is going to make, or quick money so that I can start my business or launch my business. But the more energy you give away from your business and growing the thing that you want to grow is just time wasted in something that you could have been pouring that same energy in investing and growing your business and building that brand reputation that's going to carry you throughout the longevity of your business. So that reputation is more important than a distraction of some type of shiny object, that someone's telling you, hop onto this new business strategy, because it's going to make you some income. I would say to stay focused.
I got to tell you, that is huge. And I agree with you 100%. One of the hardest lessons that I personally had to learn is being able to say no. I'm not a no kind of guy. I'm a yes kind of guy. Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, but no, you can't do everything. You can't be in two places at once. And sometimes, sometimes you have to say, that just the point that you make, it's not consistent with where we're headed, or I don't have that slot available, or whatever. But although I would love to do it, call me next year. This year, I cannot.
And here's something I don't want to leave out of that, because what we sacrifice in saying no is the relationship, right? We think, oh my gosh, I'm going to ruin this relationship if I say no, or this person's never going to call me again, or whatever. We have the fear of that. So one of the strategies that has worked well for me is when someone asks me something, I tell them I'm going to get back to them, because when you say yes or no in the moment, you really haven't given yourself time to process the highs and lows about whatever, this opportunity presents. But take a minute, tell them you'll get back to them. They should understand, I would hope so. And then if you can't be the resource to them, see if in your database you have a resource that you can offer to them, so that your no is not like, no, I can't help you, I don't care what happens. It's more, hey, I am not the one that can help you, but I have a resource that I can offer to you. So now you've been of value to that person in another way. And that not only maintains your relationship with them, it lets them know that you weren't just thinking about your time, you were thinking about what they brought to you, and you want them to continue to be successful in their pursuit of building their business or whatever they're doing as well.
That's huge. That's a great comment. That's one I'll take with me. So, well, with that being said, I mean, gosh, I've really enjoyed talking to you, Mary. It's actually, I got the benefit of talking to you for free. So, getting your thoughts for free.
Because of who you know, Jay. Who you know.
So I learned something. I took some notes. So I'm good. And I know that there's somebody out there, this listening audience that benefited from the time spent here with you as well. Before we leave, I want to do a couple things. I really need to thank our sponsors for making this happen. First of all, I want to thank Legacy Magazine for making this important. Victor, Aaliyah, all of you guys, thanks for putting this together, making it important, because somebody behind this, somebody watching this podcast is going to be our next billionaire someday from listening to this. And I want to thank Demesman and Dover, personal injury attorneys. Thank you guys for all you do to support small business as well as HBCUs, the Florida Lottery, Career Source, Broward. Before I move on from Career Source Broward always has a number of positions that they're looking to fill. And I like to go through some of those positions each week, because each week there are jobs out there that you can actually go online, submit your resume, be interviewed for, and perhaps find the next love of your life, the job that's the love of your life. Anyway, there's an insurance coverage associate, $61 an hour, a restaurant manager, $43 an hour, controller in a training center in Miami, $41 an hour, commercial loan group head, $21 an hour, an HR coordinator, $20 an hour, front desk person, $16 an hour, a workforce mobile unit driver, $15 an hour, a mechanic, $14 an hour, a customer service ops person in Miami, $13 an hour, and a food and beverage supervisor at $12.47 an hour. Now, I say that to say this, that there are tons of jobs out there that these guys are making available that might be the next opportunity for you. Also want to thank University of Miami Research for All and AARP. One more time, Mary, this has been an amazing conversation for me. It actually went on a lot longer because I think that you add a lot of value, and it's a unique opportunity for people to be able to hear from you. And
did
perhaps
have a question in the comment. I wanted to mention that. I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, if you can see it. You see it?
Yeah.
Why don't you read it and answer it? Okay.
Okay, there it is. Howard says, so if someone has a bad narrative on their brand already, how can they change that, right? So it's just like positives and negatives. So you need to have more positives out there than the negatives. If you want to change the narrative about your brand, start putting out what you want people to know about you. Start putting out a lot of that, right? So post on LinkedIn, post on Facebook. You know, you can change a narrative by just adding more content in the positive way to it. I'll give you a perfect example. There was a situation where you have a public person who made a comment about work, and she made this comment, and people are up in arms about it, and they're frustrated because of who it's coming from, about, you know, how you can be successful in business and to get up and work. And the very next post that she had was something about her personal life, right? And it was a distraction mechanism, right? So she's trying to distract from what is happening that's negative in her view. She thinks it's negative. So the best thing you can do is just continue to add positive value to your brand and reputation, and put more of that out so that it really suppresses those negative things that you don't want people to see about your brand, or you don't want it to be the first thing that they see, because if they dig enough, they'll see it. But, you know, you can show growth and learning by adding more positive things to your reputation.
I will also add to that is that it takes effort. It's got to be very intentional. And people tend to want to write negative things, right? Yeah. People tend not to want to write positive things. So in a very intentional way, you really have to put out a lot more content, positive content, and then some of that stuff will come back to you in terms of reviews or whatever. But right. Great. Thank you very much for asking that question. It was a really, really great question. And Mary, you did a masterful job answering that. So thank you very much. Again, Legacy Magazine, thank you guys for all you do. We will do this again next Monday, same time, 1 p.m. And this is the Business of Black Business. My name is Jay Reynolds, and we've interviewed Mary Davids, a career strategist, par excellence. Thanks very much for all you've done.
Thank you so much.
So again, guys, I always say if it is to be, is up to me. So we'll see you again next week. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.